Augustina, I need you to make coffee. Set the table for 6 people. That's what my billionaire son-in-law Felix said to me as I slept at 5 in the morning. Not a request, a command. I jolted awake to find him standing over my bed in complete darkness, his face glowing ghost-like from his phone screen. My heart was hammering as I squinted at the bedside clock. 5:03 a.m. My brain was still foggy, caught between dreams and reality, confusion bleeding into irritation. Felix was fully dressed in dark clothes, his expression unreadable in the dim light. And before I could even process what was happening, before I could ask why he was in my bedroom at this ungodly hour, he was already walking away. His footsteps heavy and deliberate on the stairs. No explanation, no apology. Just that command hanging in the air like smoke. I stumbled down the dark hallway, pulling my robe tighter against the early morning chill, my mind racing with questions I couldn't yet form into words. When I reached the kitchen and flipped on the light, the harsh fluorescent glare made me wince. And there was Felix, pacing by the dining room window like a caged animal, checking his phone every few seconds. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. His shoulders were rigid with tension. I moved on autopilot, filling the coffee maker with water, scooping grounds, all while watching him through narrowed eyes. Something was very wrong. Felix's reflection in the window glass looked like a stranger. When he reached up to pull 6 mugs from the cabinet, I noticed his hands were trembling. He arranged them in a precise line on the counter, spacing them exactly equal distances apart, obsessive in his movements. The coffee maker began to gurgle, filling the uncomfortable silence between us. My voice came out rough from sleep. "Felix, what's going on?" His response was clipped, mechanical. "They'll be here at 6. They. Who was they? And why was my son-in-law in my kitchen at dawn, acting like a man on the edge of something terrible? I began setting the table, my movements automatic, mechanical, while my mind spun in circles. 6 place settings, 6 people. Felix kept pacing, checking his phone, typing rapidly. My irritation was shifting now, morphing into something colder. Unease crept up my spine like ice water. I watched him through the doorway, this man who married my daughter 3 years ago, this man I thought I knew. And finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. I approached him, my voice sharper now. "Where's Eliza? Does she know you're here?" Felix froze mid-step, just stopped completely, like someone had pressed pause on his entire body. The silence that followed was terrible, long and heavy and suffocating. When his answer finally came, it was barely audible. "She doesn't know I'm here." My stomach dropped. Every terrible possibility flooded my mind at once. My daughter, my Eliza, who had stopped visiting 3 months ago, who made excuses, who wore long sleeves in August, who finally showed up at my door with a black eye and a suitcase, saying she could never go back. And now Felix was here. At 5 a.m., without Elisa knowing. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were red-rimmed, raw with something I couldn't identify. Grief? Fear? Guilt? His next words came out broken. "And she can't know. Not yet. If you don't support elderly cruelty and disrespect, hit that subscribe button right now because this story is about to take a turn nobody saw coming." But here's what I need to know from you. What would you do if you woke up to find your son-in-law standing over your bed at 5 a.m., demanding coffee, with your daughter nowhere in sight? Drop your answer in the comments. Because what I discovered in the next few minutes would change everything I thought I knew about the man my daughter married. And trust me, nothing about this morning was what it seemed. My mind raced through every terrible possibility: my daughter's bruised face, the restraining order, the nights Elisa cried herself to sleep in the guest room upstairs. And now Felix was here, in my kitchen, at dawn, and Elisa didn't know. My voice came out sharper, harder. "What did you do?" Felix shook his head, backing away from me like a cornered animal. "I didn't. It's not what you think." But I was already moving toward the phone on the counter. Whatever was happening, I needed to call someone. The police. Elisa. Anyone. Felix's hand shot out, not grabbing me, but blocking my path. "Please, just wait. Let me explain." The way he said it stopped me. It wasn't threatening. It was desperate. Broken. But all I could see was my son-in-law at 5 a.m., acting strange, my daughter unaware and vulnerable somewhere across town. This was the same man Elisa had fled from 3 months ago. The same man who made my daughter wear long sleeves in August to hide what he'd done. My voice broke. "Where is my daughter?" Felix sank into one of the dining chairs I'd just set, his head dropping into his hands. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, barely audible, the words came. "Elisa's safe? She's at Rebecca's apartment across town." Relief flooded through me for exactly 3 seconds before the questions crashed back in. If Elisa was safe at Rebecca's, then why was Felix here? Why the 5 a.m. wake-up call? Why 6 place settings? Then why are you in my house before sunrise? Felix looked up, and his face was ravaged, destroyed. "Because someone's been watching her, and they were spotted in your neighborhood last night." My world tilted sideways. "Watching her? Who?" Felix reached down and pulled out a laptop from a bag I hadn't even noticed before. His hands were still shaking as he opened it, navigated through files, then turned the screen toward me. "I need you to see something, before they get here." I leaned closer, and my breath caught in my throat. Photos filled the screen. Elisa leaving her office building. Different angles, different days, different outfits. Elisa getting into her car in a parking garage. Elisa at the grocery store, reaching for produce. Elisa entering my house through the front door, looking over her shoulder like she sensed something wrong. The timestamps went back 5 weeks. 5 weeks of surveillance. 5 weeks of someone watching my daughter's every move. My hands shook as I scrolled through image after image. "Who took these?" Felix's voice was hollow, scraped raw. "I don't know his name yet, but he knows where she is." I looked at my son-in-law with confusion, layering over anger, layering over fear. Nothing made sense anymore. The man Elisa had fled from was showing me stalker photos. The man with the restraining order was trying to protect my daughter. My brain couldn't process the contradiction. Felix checked his phone again, his jaw tightening. "They'll explain everything. I just needed you to see this first." The sound of a car pulling into the driveway cut through the kitchen. Then another. Then a third. Dawn was barely breaking outside, painting the sky that sick grey colour that comes right before sunrise. Felix stood, but didn't move toward the door. He just looked at me with those red-rimmed eyes and waited. Multiple car doors slammed outside in rapid succession. I moved to the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. 3 vehicles sat in my driveway. 3. At 6:15 in the morning, the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. Felix stood frozen in the kitchen, not moving toward the door. So I did. My robe pulled tight, my mind spinning with possibilities, none of them good. I opened the door to find 5 people crowded on my porch, all of them looking exhausted and worried in the grey dawn light. A woman in the front held up a detective's badge. "Mrs. Peggy, I'm Detective Lisa Wilson." Behind her stood an older couple I recognized immediately, Felix's parents, Albert and Helen, and next to them, a younger man who had Felix's same sharp jawline and dark eyes, his brother James. All of them looked like they hadn't slept in days. My defensive anger rose up hot and fast. If this is some kind of intervention— Helen stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture that might have been pleading. Please. We're here to protect Elisa. The words hit me like cold water. Protect Elisa. Not defend Felix. Not make excuses. Protect my daughter. My confusion deepened as I stepped aside and let them in. 6 people gathered around the table I had set in the dark. Coffee was poured into the mugs Felix had arranged so carefully. Nobody drank. The steam rose and disappeared into nothing. I stood, refusing to sit, my arms crossed over my chest. Someone better start talking. Detective Wilson opened a folder she'd been carrying, official papers and photos spilling across my kitchen table. Mrs. Peggy, we've been monitoring a situation involving your daughter for 2 weeks. My eyes snapped to Felix. What situation? Albert, Felix's father, spoke first. His voice was heavy with something that sounded like shame. It's complicated, and we share responsibility for what's happened. Helen's hands trembled around her coffee cup. We should have done more. Months ago. James was looking at his brother with a mixture of anger and grief that made my stomach turn. Felix just stared at the table, silent, not defending himself. My voice cut through the careful words and trembling hands. My daughter left Felix because he hurt her. That's not complicated. Heavy silence fell over the kitchen. Nobody argued. Nobody made excuses. Helen pulled papers from her purse with shaking hands and slid them across the table toward me. Medical documents, psychiatrist letterhead, official stamps and signatures. I scanned the pages, the clinical language swimming in front of my eyes. Diagnosis printed in cold, professional terms. Bipolar eye disorder with psychotic features. Albert's voice was heavy. Felix was diagnosed 8 months ago. He hid it from everyone, including Elisa. Felix finally spoke, his voice wrecked beyond recognition. I stopped taking medication after 3 months. Thought I could handle it on my own. I looked between the papers and Felix, trying to make the pieces fit together. You're saying you were sick? Helen's tears started, streaming down her face unchecked. He was manic, delusional. We tried to intervene, but my anger flared hot and bright. That doesn't excuse what he did to her. Detective Wilson's calm voice cut through the emotion. No, it doesn't. But it's context for what's happening now. Hit that subscribe button right now because what happens next will completely flip everything you think you know about this story. Detective Wilson pulled out a different folder. This one was thicker, more official. She opened it and slid a mugshot across the table. A man I didn't recognize stared back at me from the photo. Hard eyes, sharp features, a cold smile that didn't reach anywhere near his eyes. Drew Hammond, Elisa's ex-boyfriend from college. My memory stirred, reaching back years. She dated him sophomore year. It ended badly. The detective's face remained neutral, professional. He was arrested for aggravated assault on his next girlfriend. Served 18 months. More photos slid across the table. Images of Drew's victim. Injuries that made my stomach turn and my coffee threatened to come back up. Black eyes, broken bones, hospital reports with clinical descriptions of violence. Detective Wilson continued, relentless. He was released 4 months ago. Has violated parole twice trying to contact Elisa. Then came different photos, recent ones. Drew outside Elisa's office building, Drew in a parking lot near my house, surveillance photos, private investigator photos. Someone had been tracking him while he tracked Elisa. My voice came out weak. Elisa never mentioned he was out. Felix's response was quiet. She didn't know. I found out through the PI I hired. I tried to piece together the chronology, but nothing was lining up right. You hired a private investigator. When? Felix's voice broke on the words. 3 months ago, right after Elisa left. 3 months ago, right after Elisa showed up with a black eye and a suitcase. Right after she got the restraining order. Right after she told me she could never go back. Felix continued, the words tumbling out like a confession. I knew I'd hurt her. Knew she was right to leave. But I couldn't. I had to make sure she stayed safe. James cut in, anger evident in every syllable. He came to me in the middle of a breakdown, admitted everything he'd done, said he was afraid of himself. Albert leaned forward. We got him into emergency psychiatric care. He's been in treatment, back on medication, in therapy 4 times a week. Helen added. But he was obsessed with protecting Elisa even while getting help himself. My mind was reeling, trying to hold 2 contradictory truths at once. So you've been tracking my daughter? Felix flinched like I'd struck him. The PI has. I get reports. I never went near her, I swear. Detective Wilson's calm voice confirmed it. We verified that. Felix has maintained the restraining order distance. Detective Wilson's phone buzzed on the table. She checked it, and her face tightened in a way that made everyone go still. Drew was spotted on your street at 2 a.m., Mrs. Peggy. My blood went cold. On my street. While Elisa slept upstairs, while I slept, unaware of the danger circling my house in the dark. Police patrol checked, but he was gone by the time they arrived. Felix leaned forward, his voice urgent. That's why I came. Why I called everyone. If he knows Elisa's been staying here. I interrupted. How does he know that? The detective's face remained carefully neutral. We're not sure. He's been careful, smart. But he's escalating. Helen's voice was small. We thought if we were all here, a show of force. I finally sat down, my legs suddenly too weak to hold me. I looked at Felix with new confusion, layered over the anger I'd carried for 3 months. The man who had terrorized my daughter was now organizing a protection detail. The abuser was trying to save his victim from someone worse. Felix met my eyes. I know what I am, what I did, but Elisa deserves to be safe from him. Albert added quietly, from everyone, including Felix. That's why he's here with all of us, not alone. My world was completely inverted from where it had been 30 minutes ago. The monster was trying to protect my daughter. And somewhere out there in the grey morning light, a worse monster was circling closer. Here's my question for you. Can someone who hurt you also be the one to save you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is about to get even more complicated. Detective Wilson laid out the plan with calm precision. Elisa stayed at her friend Rebecca's last night. She's due back here at 8 a.m. I checked the clock. 6:47 a.m. Over an hour to wait. We have units watching Rebecca's building and en route here. James spoke up. Does Elisa know about Drew being out? I shook my head. She would have told me. Felix's voice was quiet. I asked the detective not to tell her yet. Didn't want to scare her unnecessarily. My sharp look could have cut glass. That wasn't your decision to make. Felix accepted the hit without flinching. I know. Old habits. And there it was. The need to control. Even his protection was laced with those same problematic instincts. Helen saw my expression. He's trying. It's not enough, but he's trying. Tension settled over the kitchen. I studied Felix differently now. Still a monster. Still the man who hurt my daughter, but also broken. Sick. His shame radiated from him like heat. Helen spoke quietly. I know what you must think of us, that we raised him to be this way. I had no answer. We didn't see it. His father's brother had bipolar. We should have watched for signs. My response was firm. Mental illness doesn't make someone abusive. No, Helen agreed, tears starting. But it can amplify everything. The rage, the paranoia, the need for control. He still made choices. Yes, he did. And he has to live with them. Felix suddenly stood, pacing, running his hands through his hair. I can't be here when she arrives. Everyone looked at him. If Elisa walks in and sees me, after everything... His voice broke completely. I'll wait outside, in my car. Just... Someone tell me when she's safe inside. Detective Wilson started to object. Mr. Pierce, the plan... I don't care about the plan. I care about not traumatizing her more than I already have. James stood too. I'll go with you. My voice stopped them. Felix? He turned, face wet with tears. I struggled with the words. Why are you really here? Felix's answer was devastating. Because I destroyed the person I loved most. I can't undo that, but I can do this. He left. The sound of a car door closing followed. Detective Wilson's phone rang. Her face changed. She hung up and looked at me. Elisa left Rebecca's early. She's 10 minutes away. My relief came out in a rush. She's okay? Patrol says she's alone in her car, on schedule. Albert asked, should we tell Felix? No, let him stay outside like he said. The garage door opened. Elisa's car pulled in. I moved toward the entrance, heart hammering. Helen and Albert hung back, Detective Wilson positioned near the door. Elisa entered through the mudroom. She stopped short, seeing everyone. Mum? What's going on? Whose cars are... Then she saw Felix's parents. Her face went pale. Why are they here? I reached for her. Sweetheart, there's something you need to know. She backed away, looking for exits. Is Felix here? Mum, tell me he's not here. He's outside. He won't come in. But her panic wasn't subsiding. Why are you all here? Detective Wilson stepped forward, showing her badge. Ms. Peggy, I'm Detective Wilson. We need to talk about Drew Hammond. Elisa's face transformed. A different kind of fear. Older. Deeper. Drew? What about him? He's out of prison, and he's been looking for you. Elisa sank against the wall. I caught her, guiding her to a chair. How long have you known? We've been monitoring for 2 weeks. Her eyes found mine. Did you know? I found out an hour ago. Detective Wilson began explaining Drew's patterns, the surveillance, the parole violations. Elisa's voice came out hollow. So, Felix? He knew? I nodded. He's the one who found out. Hired someone to... A sudden sound from upstairs cut me off. A thump, then scraping. Everyone froze. Elisa's bedroom was upstairs. James and Felix were outside. Detective Wilson's hand went to her weapon. My whisper was confused. No one else is here. Another sound. Footsteps. Then a voice. Elisa's voice, but wrong. A recording. Help. Someone. Elisa was sitting right here, her face going white. The voice came again, raspy, male. Elisa, I know you're here. Drew's voice. Detective Wilson gestured everyone back, calling for backup on her radio. My world went into slow motion. Helen's hand covered her mouth. Albert pulled his wife back. I held Elisa down, held my daughter close. The bedroom door opened upstairs, footsteps on the landing, and then Drew Hammond appeared at the top of the stairs, holding a knife, eyes wild, smiling. "There you are, baby. I've been waiting. Subscribe right now, because what happens in the next 3 minutes will leave you speechless." Drew descended slowly. Detective Wilson's weapon was drawn. Drew Hammond dropped the knife. He ignored her. His eyes were locked on Elisa. 3 years. 3 years I thought about this. Elisa pressed against me, both of us frozen. Drew's voice was conversational, wrong. "You didn't visit me. Not once." "Drew, there are officers outside. You can't—" Drew laughed, high and sharp. "They're watching the wrong doors. Been in your attic since midnight, Elisa." My horror crystallized. He'd been above us the whole time. "Listening to you all plan. Very sweet. Felix protecting you." Drew reached the bottom. "Where is he? I want him to watch." The front door burst open. Felix and James came in. Felix saw Drew, saw the knife, saw Elisa's terror. His face changed completely. "Mr. Pierce, stay back." But Felix was already moving forward, hands up. "Drew, look at me." Drew swung toward him, knife tracking. There he is, the husband, the one who got to have her. Felix's voice was steady, calm. "You want someone to hurt? Hurt me." Drew cocked his head. "Now, why would I do that?" "Because hurting Elisa hurts me more than anything you could do to my body." Felix took another step. "I deserve it. Everything you want to do. I hurt her too." Drew's interest was caught. "Did you now?" Felix kept advancing, putting himself between Drew and Elisa. "I was sick, out of my mind. Did things that haunt me." Drew laughed. "We're not the same. I knew exactly what I was doing." "Then you're worse than I am. At least I'm trying to fix it." Drew's face darkened. "You don't get to fix anything." He lunged toward Elisa. Everything happened at once. Detective Wilson fired, missing in the chaos. Felix dove forward, catching Drew's arm. Both men crashed into the dining table, chairs scattered, mugs shattered. James jumped in. Albert pulled Elisa and me toward the kitchen. Helen screamed. The knife skittered across the floor toward my feet. I kicked it away, under the refrigerator. Felix and Drew rolled across broken ceramic. Drew's rage was focused, but Felix was fighting differently, not trying to win, trying to restrain. James and Detective Wilson finally pulled Drew off. He was still thrashing, screaming Elisa's name. Felix stayed on the floor, bleeding from a cut across his ribs, but he wasn't fighting back anymore. He was just staring at Elisa, making sure she was still there, still safe. Sirens got louder. Backup arrived. Drew was cuffed, dragged out, still screaming. Paramedics rushed in. The chaos resolved into terrible quiet. Felix lay on the floor in broken glass and spilled coffee, bleeding and crying, having just saved the woman he'd once terrorized from someone even worse. Here's what I need to know. When someone saves you from danger, but is also the reason you needed saving in the first place, does that change anything? Tell me in the comments. 2 hours later, the sterile hospital waiting room hummed with quiet tension. Felix sat in a curtained area getting stitched up. Elisa was across the room, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. I stood between them, watching both. Detective Wilson delivered the update. Drew was in custody, multiple charges, bail denied. Helen and Albert spoke quietly with a lawyer. James paced, and I watched my daughter's eyes drift repeatedly toward that curtain where Felix was. Elisa hadn't spoken since the police arrived. She'd given her statement in monotone, let paramedics examine her, and now sat with Rebecca. But her gaze kept returning to Felix. The nurse finished Felix's bandages and left him sitting on the bed edge, shirtless, with white gauze wrapped across his ribs. He stared at his hands. Elisa stood suddenly. Rebecca grabbed her arm. "Elisa, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." She walked across the waiting room. Everyone pretended not to watch. She pulled the curtain aside. Felix looked up, eyes red. Neither spoke. Finally, Elisa's voice came out barely audible. "You saved my life." Felix shook his head. I couldn't let him. I know what you did to me. What you are. I know. Thank you anyway." I approached, standing behind Elisa. Felix looked between us. "I'm checking into a facility, residential treatment, already arranged." Elisa nodded. "That's good. The restraining order stays. I won't fight it. Won't contact you. I need you to know what I did when I was sick. It was still me. I can't separate it. I know. But this is also me. The person who'd rather die than see you hurt again." Elisa's tears started. Both things are true. That's the hard part. I loved you. I still love you. And I have to stay away from you forever. Yes. Simple. Clear. Final. My hand touched Elisa's shoulder. "We should go." Elisa turned away, then back. "Get better, Felix. Really better." "I will. Not for us. There is no us. But I will." Elisa left without looking back. Felix sat alone, the sound of his quiet crying following us out. The next morning at 7 a.m., sunlight filled my kitchen. Elisa sat at the table with fresh coffee. Both of us were exhausted, sleepless. "How are you feeling?" I asked. Elisa laughed hollowly. "I don't know. I keep thinking about him in that attic, and about Felix throwing himself at Drew." She looked at me. "I'm allowed to be grateful he was there, right?" "Yes." "Even though I'm still terrified of him?" "Yes." "Even though what he did was unforgivable?" "All of it can be true at once." Elisa wrapped her hands around the mug. "His mom called, asked to visit." "What did you say?" "That I needed time. She was crying, apologizing." She paused. "Is that crazy? Feeling bad for his mother?" "You have a kind heart. Even after everything." "I called that therapist. Appointment Thursday." "Good. And I'm looking at apartments. I need to feel like myself again." "Who is that? Yourself?" Elisa considered. "I'm not sure anymore. It feels like another person lived that life before." "Maybe you get to decide who you are now." "He's still dangerous to me." "Yes." "And he still saved my life." "Yes." "I don't know what to do with that." "You don't have to do anything with it. You just have to keep living." When Felix woke me up at 5 a.m., I thought I knew what kind of man he was. The kind who hurt my daughter, who deserved contempt. I still think that. And I also think he's a man drowning in illness, trying to save someone while knowing he's part of what she needs saving from. Drew is in jail. Felix is in treatment. Elisa is in my kitchen, alive. That morning taught me that people contain multitudes. A monster can perform heroism. An abuser can genuinely try to change. A victim can feel gratitude and rage simultaneously. My daughter is building herself back, slowly, painfully, but building. I'm learning that protection doesn't always look like I expect, that sometimes the person who hurt you might be the one standing between you and something worse. That doesn't make what they did okay. It just makes them human. I don't know what happens next. None of us do. But Elisa is here. She's safe. And for now, that has to be enough. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. And here's my final question. How do you move forward when the person who saved you is also the person who broke you? Tell me in the comments. Because that's where Elisa is now, in that impossible space between trauma and healing. And maybe that's okay. Maybe healing isn't about having answers. Maybe it's just about waking up and choosing to keep going. Elisa is choosing to keep going. And that, in the end, is everything.